Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Kush Coffee and Conversation with David, Mr. David. Uh, Decaf coffee. I just had a few hits, so sorry. I'm a little, But just to get right into it, I'm a bit late, but I initially conceived of this yap as a response to Kanye West's his fucking apology that he just did. Sorry. Um, and I'm not so interested anymore now that I know it's like kind of been, a little bit of time has passed. I don't think that the apology really had much of an impact at all. Um, I really don't think it did much to change public perception of him. It didn't change momentum of anything. The album that was supposed to come out, supposedly, I mean, I don't follow stuff like that anymore, but Bully, which was supposed to come out like last week or something, uh, didn't come out. Who could have predicted that Kanye would delay another album, right? Um, but it's got me thinking a lot more about my history with Kanye West, um, and what what I think. My history with Kanye West. I don't script any of these, so please give me a second to gather my thoughts. My history with Kanye West, and I think like implications that has for like in a more macro way, like the public perception of Kanye West, what he represents in our society right now. Um, and as you can see, any eagle-eyed Kanye fans, I actually am wearing a 2019 original, but I actually have on Kanye West's Jesus is King era sweater because I thought it was important to show my credentials as a Kanye West fan and just have something thematic to wear for the video. Um, but I I must admit I am a former Kanye simp, a former like Kanye stan, like for real. Anybody who knew me in the 2010s, pretty much all the way throughout, in the early 2020s, would know that like I was probably the biggest Kanye fan that they ever met in their life, easily. I have not only the shirt, but I have like a Vultures T-shirt from Vultures One. That's how recent my deconstruction was, and some Yeezy Pods also from the same time. The little shoes, which actually I still think were really cool. Um, and I have many of his albums physically. I have many of his vinyls. I think practically every CD before Jesus is King. For vinyls, I got everything almost except for 808s and except for his original three vinyls: College Dropout, Late Registration, and Jesus is not Jesus is King. 808s, like I just said. Um, to be honest, I'd still like to get 808s secondhand, of course, because I don't want to give any money to him anymore. Um, but you might notice I used earlier the word deconstruction, and that is because I have gone through a lot of personal change over the last few years, and I think that what has happened with me in terms of my relationship with Kanye West is analogous to a sort of, I'll just come out and say it. I think that the Kanye West fandom is a cult. It is 100% a cult. It functions like one. In the exact same way, mind you. Cult of personality, I guess. I'm not like a cult scholar or anything, but I like to be specific with the things I'm talking about, even if that means like I'll define it as I'm talking about it, even if that is not necessarily an accurate like academic definition, just to get across my understanding of this thing and speak about it from the perspective that I'm coming from. Always happy to be corrected and learn new things, though. I just like to express myself, even if it's messy. And well, Kanye West, when I was a kid, he okay, sorry, I cut myself off. Cult of personality, in my opinion, the Kanye fandom is wrapped around his personality in the same way that the Drake fandom was. And if you watch how both of these fandoms act, if you see these people on like Instagram defending their artists, or the kind of discourse that you'll find just everywhere on the internet, and how they treat like insiders versus outsiders, and the degree to which that they will make excuses for these people, and to the point of denial of reality and delusion and all these pathetic things. They act very similarly to the MAGA crowd with Donald Trump. And once you notice such similarities in the structure of how their fandoms operate, I think it becomes impossible to deny the similarities in how those figures conduct themselves in the world. How they build up these things for themselves, and so much of their persona depends on this like creation of a reality, this denial of tangible reality in favor of like a reality that you can just will to existence, and the power of that comes with that. In Kanye's case, it's this idea that he is like one of the greatest, if not like the greatest living artist of our generation, which I at one point may have agreed with, and I don't think I do anymore. In the case of Drake, it's all this like kayfabe that he was subscribing to in terms of like his persona, and like trying to be all these different things that he just clearly wasn't. And but like what it means to hold on to that, to this like form of, to paraphrase the Elephant Graveyard, who is a great YouTube channel, great videos about like Joe Rogan and Comedy Mothership, all those guys. He refers to this as like being a new guy, right? And to be a new guy, you have to tell yourself that you exist in like a reality that is not the same as the one that is reflective of the guy that you really are, who you don't want to be, right? So you tell yourself that you're this new guy in a new reality, and the more that attracts other people who similarly have this desire to be a new guy in a new reality. And when you get enough of those people together, you get the illusion. They get positive feedback of their ability to manifest this illusion that you can just will a new world into existence with your own like definition of the one that already exists, the redefining of it. And obviously in Trump's case, there's a lot to be said about that. I it's astounding the level to which Trump deludes himself and denies reality, and then it's even more harrowing to see the way that the things that people will do to co-sign that in a way. But I think in Kanye's case, right, because since we're talking about Kanye today, I think that when I was a kid, I feel compelled to start from the beginning. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it yet. Heads up. When I was a kid, Kanye West became, in a very organic way, eventually like reached the absolute like peak of the mountaintop, I think, in terms of like public perception, where his status, in the music industry and as an artist. It was very chaotic. The journey from college dropout to, I would say, twisted fantasy is 100% where he like takes the crown, like undeniably. In the meta of all this, which, remember that I'm gonna speak about the meta because I think it's integral to. I don't think the meta is the same as reality. Is not the same as humanity, but the meta of music superstardom, the meta of the commodified art world, right? How that functions always played a huge part in Kanye's artistic development. He was always hyper aware of his status and used that in his art, and intentionally made art that he had connected like autistic dots in his brain between like things he'd seen in the past and the world around him, of like, oh, Jay-Z got big because he did this at this time and made this decision artistically and knew this person and focused on this and asserted this and blah blah blah. These are the things, right? I just used Jay-Z as an example, but Kanye saw it in Michael Jackson and Prince and legends of the past and legends that were contemporary to him, and people, artists that he perhaps respected on a personal level that seemed to not make it to that next level, like some of the backpack rappers that he started off with. And he was learning, like patterns in a very like systemic, programmatic way, what inputs were given and not at certain times to affect this outcome here, right? And now that I fucked my hair up, sorry, fuck it. Uh, um, sorry, I may be expecting company. So far, not okay. And Kanye was learning like what works and what doesn't to get what you want out of your career, um, out of his career, right? And he was genuinely a talented guy. He was, I think, at some point, he really had an understanding. Because I think the best art, the only real art, is art that gives space to the subconscious. I think that if you make something that is like 100%, that's why like AI art can never, in my opinion, like, that's the thing, that's the real thing it can't do. It could, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I guess I find it important to express like what I perceive as that meta, and to highlight that Kanye, through his like ascension, which was very calculated on his end, but it's not that I'm not trying to take away from the ideas that took talent, that it took luck, that it took hard work. I'm not saying any that I'm not negating any of that. I think there is quite a level of genius to Kanye's artistic output, interspersed with his maneuvering through the public eye and through the music industry and through other industries like clothing, politics, what have you, like later on. And he was so good at allowing like his art to come from a real place and also be in service of, that's the thing. I'm not sure if to what extent it ever actually came from a real place. I think that it was compromised possibly forever from the beginning. I think that his art was made a lot more cynically, than like you would ever think if you were ever part of Kanye's cult and to be like a Kanye stan and whatnot. Because the thing that is so defining about Kanye, supposedly, right, in his persona, is his level of honesty and belief in, the truth that should be like apparent, right? It's not like saying I'm making my own truth. It's that like I'm seeing the truth that you're not seeing, and that provides a mask for pretty much all of his actions, where you're like, okay, maybe that was a bit messy what he did, maybe that was a bit rude, maybe that was a little uncalled for, but this is a guy who is just so honest. He can't help himself, man. When you see the truth that deeply, oh, like you props to him. You should respect how he acts. At least he's not one of those fake celebrity assholes, like woke bitches, whatever. And that's that. I don't know, man. That was like bullshit. I realized all along, and I think it's just a balance. I think because you could also you could say that about any successful artist. Obviously, if you to become successful to that point and maintain success, you have to be calculated, right? Like Kendrick Lamar is extremely calculated. He's also a genius, but I do think that there's a point where Kendrick Lamar, if he has to make a decision between sacrificing the meta, like playing the meta, and sacrificing like service of real like artistic value in society, I think he's always going to like have the art come out on top, and that drives what he does more so. Kanye definitely at some point compromised like artistic value in favor of whatever he thought was good for his image or his career. And I think I see this now. Something happened to me over the last like 3 years or so where I've done a lot of deconstruction in myself as a person, and the killing of my ego in a sense, and seeing through a lot of the defenses and coping mechanisms and subconscious things that I'm still digging through to this day to correct like some destructive patterns of behavior. And I think that when you, this is gonna sound like a funny place to source this, but I agree with it. Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club. I don't remember what the thing, what who he was talking about. I think it was about Kendrick and Drake actually, but he said that a healed person can see something. I'm paraphrasing big time, not verbatim, but he said something about like how a healed person can see right through an unhealed person. Like you can just see all the shit that they haven't, they're not working on. You can just tell. You can just see it all. And I think that that's true. And I think that when I began to evolve as a person and try to make a conscious attempt to heal and deconstruct, I did start to see like around me like, oh, who's actually out here like trying to be a real person, trying to like be their real self, and who's content like trying to keep some meta alive, like all of us in this world, right? All of us in this society. Sorry. Okay. If you hear those things, it's from family, and like I said, I might be expecting company. Um, and the thing about these cult of personality guys is that they provide a lot of comfort, I think, to that perception that you want to be true, that like reality that you're trying to create. They give you, they say like, they give you that security to be that new guy in that new reality because they're like doing it and they're supposed to be an example of like like a testimonial, like this method works, so follow me and you can do it for yourself too. Let's all uphold this new reality together, and we can be these new guys that we want to be. I think that's what I said for Kanye, right? I think that could be said for Donald Trump. I think that could be said for Drake and a lot of other people. um, I think this may be a hot take. I may get some, depending on how many views I get and who sees this, I may get some bad comments, but I think Susie Toot on last season of Drag Race is talented, um, as she was, and to the extent I respect her like artistic execution. I think she was so concerned with the meta of Drag Race that I found it hard to like root for her and fully trust her. I think, um, not saying that like any drags against her, no pun intended, but um, just as an example. Um, and the thing about unhealed people trying to keep alive all of these like ideas, because when you deny, eventually, right, you get to this point where like you're denying reality so much that you become delusional, and these things that you are not, they're real, right? That whatever's like wrong inside yourself, it is real, and nothing you do is going to make it go away unless you confront it, and that might require something scary. In my case, right, I was raised Catholic, and I don't know, I guess I still consider myself a Catholic, but kind of, I don't know, I really don't know, like maybe more agnostic these days, something, but I like Catholics. And I went to confession 2 years ago, and that was my first time going to confessions probably since like I was a young child. Because I was raised, I know technically Catholics are supposed to go to confession before receiving the Eucharist every week, um, but I hadn't gone in a long time. I was raised in a family that just kind of overlooked that, like it didn't matter. And I went, and I had, it was essentially like therapy. I spilled about things that like I'd never talked about my whole life, essentially, that I never thought I would ever share with another person. And when I revealed those things, like, about myself and about my past and about like my inner thoughts and all this types of stuff, and to be told like it kickstarted, right, this deconstruction period of myself, because I was like, there was something about like not be having to hide anymore, because I'd shown a light on like the fullness of myself. And I came home that day and I told everything. I told the priest, I told that to my wife. and which was extremely important. She was my fiance then, but I felt the need to do all of this in preparation for marriage because I wanted her to know like the fullness of who I was, even these things that I had not been able to bring out in like 20 years, right? Traumas and mistakes and whatnot. Um, and it allowed me to like build on my real person because I'd been escaping those things to become a new guy, right? And I would convince myself all kinds of ways like, oh, maybe I'm like making that up in my memory, or maybe that like, like what does it really matter? Like maybe I really can just forget it, or maybe like in spite of this I can still be like blah blah blah, like all of this is just stimulate. Like you start to get really meta about the human experience as a way to cope, as a way to like escape the real reality and to justify the creation of that new reality that you find yourself in. And that it's very like disconcerting when you see somebody who clearly has not like attempted, or rather like is continuing to run away from doing that kind of work. I think everybody is going to have to do it like eventually if you want to have any kind of real like conscious like life. And at the time that I did this, we did not know a lot of stuff about Kanye and his cousin that we know now. But I had heard enough stuff kind of like. I connected a lot of dots, right, about like Kanye criticism and rumors and all types of controversies that I had by default taken his side for many years and assumed like the worst about where it was coming from or what was being said. Um, and I reconnected like a lot of those like dots, and it made me really see like how he probably really was that unhealed person still, and there were a lot of things that he had never properly dealt with, nor wanted to, nor seemingly wanted to. And I think that, like I said before, his denial of reality and the need to be that new guy, to be someone better than whatever it is he's trying to run from, I think it catches up with you. I know people in real life who, as we get older, I'm about, I just turned 29 on the 20, not gonna, 26th, 22nd, no, fucking, my birthday, January 22nd is my birthday. And I'm 29 years old. And that means like, we're starting to, I feel like I'm pretty much 30 already. I feel like it's starting to start thinking about life like I'm entering my 30s. And so a lot of my peers, I know a lot of people that you see a difference the older you get. You see people who continue to like evolve as a person and be very functional, be very in tune with themselves and other people, and there's almost like a peacefulness to those people, um, even if they're like struggling or like have other issues, versus people who cannot evolve, people who there's some part of themselves that is destructive, that leads to destructive patterns that they just can't get rid of. They hold on to it, and they end up getting divorced, or having like bad relationships with their kids, or making bad decisions, continuing to like party and abuse drugs and alcohol. And I say that as I'm like high. I like smoking on a Friday, sue me. um, I mean, a Saturday, fuck. So you see it, right? And you see like, it's almost uncanny. Like there's an uncanniness to like the person that is, who has those walls up still. And if you don't address them right, you become kind of stunted. And I always think you can't fight time, you can't fight change. So you just need to learn how you're going to adapt, right? And work with the way things are and the way that they will change and will continue to change. And if you can't do that, right, it doesn't lead to good things. The more you fight reality, the more it reveals you to be, the more that those things you don't want to like come out, come out. Your negative traits, I mean, the bad things about you as a person that you want like to hide. It's like kind of like I said about like the Matrix thing in my last video, where like the thing that you want to hide so badly is so apparent that like you can figure out what is being hidden by looking at like I'm not from the Matrix, but I was actually from Metal Gear, but by seeing the parameters of like what the security comes up for, right? And it's true, like what people say, right? Like you project those fears. Um, if you say like, "Oh, I'm the," in Kanye's case, right? For example, right? Like he goes MAGA, he goes anti-women. He's probably always been like that. Obviously very anti-black, anti-Jewish. Um, and there's always the victim of all these like classes, all these broad sweeping generalizations that he like turns into like vendettas, and his inability to just ever admit that he's wrong or ever admit that he may have done harm. um and so it begs the question, right? If you're trying so hard to appear as having done like no harm to the point of committing great harm, what the fuck? Like what harm have you done? Like why is it so hard to just own up to it? um so I think that's why, right? Like when you see when if you criticize Kanye on the internet, which who knows, if this video finds like that a certain circle of viewers, who are gonna come in the comments and say horrible things, just act like fucking animals, right? Because they are themselves in defending Kanye. They're defending the idea that they themselves can also escape from the things that bother them, the aspects of themselves and of reality that they don't want to be true, and um, in turn are becoming major fucking assholes to do it, right? Just like MAGA, just like OV Hose, all these like kinds of things, right? And I'm trying to figure out like where exactly am I going with this, because I should start rounding the video out. I don't want it to be as long as the last one. Um, I don't know. I guess those are just like floating thoughts, right? And I think it's because of that like I can see through. I guess hey, I'll tie it back into the apology. Kanye's apology was dog shit. I don't buy it for a lot of reasons, right? Words alone, the apology is all about himself, bro. It's all about like how tough it is to deal with bipolarism, and how like nobody took it seriously and nobody was there to help him, and he's like shut the fuck up, dude. Like for real, fuck Kanye West. I dead name his fucking bitch ass. Fuck him. Fuck him. Um, it's so obvious, and I think that it. I'm glad that it didn't really like move much of a cultural needle, at least as of right now. Maybe that'll change if an album really does come out. But you see it in like the way people respond to it. I think people that are quick to be like, "Oh well, hold on, guys, let's maybe it's time to welcome him back into the fold." I'm like, how are you not seeing this? I think it shows that like you want it to be true that Kanye can reform like that easily, right? That it's all just a matter of like appearances again, right? Like this idea of like the meta, which is completely based on aesthetics, fascism, versus like reality, versus like a real like human thing, real life, like truth, organic like truth. The one that is like what you're dancing around, the truth that you're dancing around. You have people that live in this, that live in that world, right? And we have to deal with these fuckers over here, and the world that they're like trying to like. They're gaslighters, right? Like it's like a gaslighting abusive partner. Like they're so narcissistic in their own like needs that they'll turn reality into whatever it needs to be to serve those needs against, and they'll victimize somebody to do it. It's almost the point. Um, so that's the main thing. Like I'm like the when I made my confession, right? I made mistakes and I'd hurt some people in some ways throughout my life, and that's the focus to me. Like that's why I feel bad. It's not about me and how I feel bad. I feel bad because of the hurt I've given to other people. And that I think everybody needs to like have a moment where you own up to that. And you need to do that to continue evolving as a person. And you need to be able to like live with like you have to reckon with yourself. You have to understand that like yeah, you did that. You hurt them. You said this, you did that. And say like that was bad. I shouldn't have done that. And not make excuses but understand like why did you do that, And it might sound corny, it might like be hard to like envision, but like the path to like evolving beyond that and forgiving yourself comes from giving yourself a chance to be a better person for real. And I don't think that Kanye is capable of that. Even when like he did confess like that stuff with his cousin, that does seem like truly a I would think a core aspect of reality that he'd like to escape and make a new reality. He still didn't like address like real reality. He created a new reality out of that, and he's not really like identifying that he committed sexual assault on his own cousin, and he's not really apologized for that. He just aired his cousin out. He aired his cousin out and he said like, "Oh, I got confused by gay media. I'm a victim of gay media." What the fuck are you like? Shut up, dude. Um, it's fucking sickening. It's fucking sickening because you already said what happened. Just own up to it. Like we know. Like what are you hiding from at that point? It's something that he can't deal with it. He can't handle the fact that he like did something like wrong, right? And still, that's what you see in the apology. He can't own up and say like, man, hey, there's a lot wrong with me. Sure, I have a lot of problems, but I fucked up. That was fucked up that I said those things about you guys, about groups of people. That's fucked up that my words and my influence had reverberations culturally and have probably done unmeasurable damage at this point to communities and individuals and the psyches of many people in this country and in the world. There's a lot of harm that Kanye West did. And that's why like I don't want to give any money to him anymore. And it's really like tough. Like some days I really miss the Kanye West that I thought, existed, the one that I believed in. And that's why I have his vinyls, because when I want to listen to his music, I keep them because I'm like, hey, if I ever want to listen to him, I don't have to give him money. But I don't even. It's ruined his past music for me. Like all the way back to College Dropout, dude. No, he even said, right? Remember he said he was like lying about being a backpacker. He was pretending to be a backpack rapper. I can't even believe that shit. You were cynical like all the way back then? What the fuck? What was any of it? If it was all fake, what's the fucking point? I don't care how good it is, right? When you have an artist like Kendrick Lamar, my real new hero god. I'm just kidding. But I think that's like the big thing that the Drake Kendrick beef like revealed is like that difference between aesthetic and like truth. It was all an aesthetic, dude. Like you just knew this was like in theory the perfect album executed just right, like to give you that status you wanted, like as your debut like album. And I'm fucking like bored. That's boring, you know. The ways that I thought everything was revelatory, it never really was. And you can listen to like his Bully and Cuck albums, which I have, and there's a part of him, right, that he's like such a natural artist that you see like his subconscious come through, like those. I mean, guy's brain is probably fucking fried, right? Like after all the nitrous at this point, and those albums, they sound like they're in the head of a fucking fried brain, Benadryl nightmare, like forever fucking guy, right? Um, and that is interesting, but it's not harnessed. It just is. Um, and the albums are fucking ass, dude. They're not good. There's nothing like, they are what they are on the surface, and that's it. You know, his skills have deteriorated, I think, as a result of his inability to grow as a person, combined with his like destructive drug use. That it's sad. You know, it's sad. Like what the fuck he was doing on those albums, but he did it to himself, and you know there comes a point, like I understand, like you can have your pain and it's real and it's valid, but when it gets to a point where you're selling out other people, at least even one other person, right? If you're selling them out to protect yourself and elevate yourself to avoid that stuff, you lose my sympathy for whatever. Like, I don't give a shit, you know? I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for him. And it hurts me to say that. It's weird. It's a complex, like, mix of emotions with my history with him. But fuck him. That's how I feel, you know? Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of a downer. It hurts because if you know me in real life, I'm an artist myself, um, and music is a big part of like my artistic output. I love music. I love making music, and based on a lot of things, Kanye was a huge influence to my own artistic output, especially musically. So like, there's a part of me that I think I think at the end of the day, I wish Kanye would just have this reckoning with himself. I don't care really like if we get like music out of it, but I I, I wish that for everyone. I wish that Donald Trump would have this reckoning with himself, but there's some people like these guys, like it's like impossible, right? And now we're all hurting because of it. And you could do it and you won't. So fuck you, you know? There's individuals in my life I feel that way about. Um and I think there is something empowering about knowing that no matter how somebody like hurts you, to see that they are still that like unhealed person, and they probably always will be. You know that they're like miserable. You know that they really are like miserable in a profound way. And by contrast, you are at peace, right? Even if like life is unpleasant, even if you go through like trials and tribulations, you are more at peace as a person than they ever will be in yourself. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the quality your life has when you have a soul that if it's not clean, you're like trying to clean it, um and what that effort means throughout your entire life. It will happen until you die. You should never be stagnant. You should never fight change. You should never fight reality. You should always grow. You should always learn, always apologize, always like improve. um and I guess that's my big takeaway. If there's anything like positive to come out of it all, it's that's the message. um yeah, it was been a little while since my last Yap video. I said in that one I didn't know if I was gonna make another, and here it is. Sorry, I'm checking like my time. Damn, long again. Um, I enjoy these. I don't know how often I'll do them, but they're just fun. Just like a video log for myself. If you enjoy it, like it, leave a comment, whatever. I'm hesitant, to play the meta, so I just want to do this to enjoy it. And I hope if you find it, I hope you enjoy it too. All right. Peace out, y'all. Bye bye.